Hello friends, Fredrick again from Kangan Bendigo Institute in Victoria in Australia, a bakery trainer by profession, and I've been giving you some demonstrations previously in different products. So this time I thought, with all these lockdowns happening all over the world due to this COVID-19 situation, I thought I'll bring something good for you that you can utilize your time in preparing while these lockdowns are on. So we know that everybody loves cake, everybody goes to the shop to buy cakes. So instead of going to the shops during this lockdown period, you can do this at home. So I'm going to assist you, give you some tips and demonstrate to you in making a lovely black forest cake. In French terms, it's called black forest gâteau. So let's take a plunge into the cake world. So join me guys. Let's move. Alright, first things first, as I've always mentioned in my videos, I always want everybody to be safe. So occupational health and safety comes first. So always when you're doing things like this, you have to be very careful, keep yourself safe, do the right thing in the right way. And also food safety. With the current situation all over the world, I think we have to follow all the food safety steps. So I will be washing my hands first, right, before I could start, right, soap on your hand, and then just wash your hands, keep your hands clean. Now to start off this black forest cake, it's a pretty long process, I would say, but for us, mise en place, which is getting all stuff ready, is very important. We need to first start off, we need to have the cake tin ready to make the cake, or the sponge, I would say. So to make a nice tin, all right, which is over here, all right, if you see this tin, this has been prepared. I'm going to show you another tin that how it's prepared. All right, so get your two tins prepared before you start anything on this sponge. So I take a nice 8-inch round tin. Even if it's bigger, that's fine. Even if it's a smaller tin, that's fine. But usually a lovely size of cake should be about 8 inches in size, in diameter. So I have taken this wax paper, used a nice scissor, all right, and a small pen if you want to mark your circles. And I have cut one piece like that and a piece like that, all right. And then I have some spray with me, all right, which I'm going to spray the tin with. So you can use oil if you like. If you like, you can use some melted butter, right? But I would prefer you have some type of fat on that so that it sticks the paper well. So there you go. I just nicely spray the whole thing on the side, all right. And then I take the circle, put it in the middle like this, all right, so that it does stick to the base, all right. And then I take this long piece of paper and I'll just stick it aside. All right, if you find there's less fat, you can always spray again because it needs to stick to the sides. All right. All right, there you go. The tin's ready. All right. So once that tin is ready, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to prepare the tin. All right. We are going to look at the recipe and the ingredients that we use for the sponge. Right. So I've got all my ingredients ready. We are going to make a nice emulsified sponge, which is pretty much very famous in the baking industry currently. All right. And I'm going to use one of those industry recipes so that most of the ingredients you should be finding it in supermarkets. All right, so all these ingredients that I am having, I'm going to go one by one explaining to you what this ingredient is. The most important ingredient when you're making a cake is your flour. So I got 250 grams of high ratio cake flour. When I say high ratio cake flour, you might be a bit worried, where is this flour, whether it's available. Yes, if you go into supermarkets, you might see on the flour shelf it says cake flour. That flour will be perfectly all right. Cake flour is very similar to the high ratio cake flour. If not, you can always use the plain flour. It doesn't make a big difference, right? But I would prefer you use cake flour. Then to sweeten up the cake, I'm using 280 grams of caster sugar. All right, nice white caster sugar. And then since Black Forest cake needs a very nice chocolate sponge, so I'm going to make a chocolate sponge today. So to add that chocolatey flavor, I'm going to use 50 grams of cocoa powder, right? So this is a nice, very nice cocoa powder, nice brand. You can use any brand you like, but the good brands like Cadbury or Nestle would help you out. Then I also, to give it a bit of a flavor and strength to the batter, I'm going to use 20 grams of milk powder. So that's nice skim milk powder. And then I have a leavening agent, which is called the baking powder, right? So if you see that one, McKinsey baking powder, all right, is also a good brand. So I'm going to use baking powder, and I'm also going to use food graded glycerin. Now guys, glycerin is always a shelf life protector. So if you want to keep the sponge for a longer time in the fridge, this glycerin is going to help you with that. So that's the purpose I'm going to use glycerin. Glycerin is optional. If you don't want to use, if you want to use the cake on the same day or finish it off in 2 days, you don't need to actually add. But if you want to keep your cake for a longer time, the sponge longer time in the fridge, that's when you use glycerin. Then I got 140 mils of cold water here. All right, nice cold water. And then I got 240 grams of eggs, full eggs. So that's approximately about 5 eggs, right? It doesn't matter if it's a little more, because you can't exactly get the weight exactly 240. So basically, if it's about 5 or 6 grams or more, I won't mind that. All right. And then this is one of the important ingredients that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to give you a bit of an explanation on what this is. This is what is called a cake stabilizer. It's called an emulsifier in another way, right? So I'm going to use this emulsifier. Now this emulsifier can be replacement of your fat that you use in a cake, because if you have noticed, I'm not using any butter or any oil. Instead, I'm using this emulsifier. Now emulsifier is a thing that can give the cake a nice strength, a flavor, the softness and everything. There's about 60 things that actions up with an emulsifier in the sponge. That is why we call this an emulsified sponge. Your next question will be, where can I buy this? Yes, now it's available online. Since everybody is going online, there are small tubs of 250 grams or 300 gram tubs online now. You can buy it, all right? I can give you some brands of cake emulsifiers, or if you find it as cake stabilizer, it's the same product. So the one I'm using today is called Ovalette cake stabilizer or cake emulsifier. Definitely it is available online. You don't need too much. You only need about 16 to 17 grams. I have 16 grams here, so I would say 16 grams. All right, so that's basically my explanation on the ingredients that I'm going to use here. All right, obviously after the cake is made, there are other ingredients which come in when we are decorating the cake. So basically that ingredients I will come to you all later when I start decorating the cake. We got a nice small mixer here, all right, with a whisk attachment, right? If you see, that's a whisk attachment. It's like a balloon whisk like thing. So that's the one that you need to use. Why? The question is because we need to aerate a lot of air into the sponge mix. That gives the sponge softness and gives it a bit of a rise. So the more air you incorporate into the sponge, a better sponge you get. So all right, so I've gone through all that. I'm pretty sure that you would have understood this. All right, you do have any comments, you can put it on my comment box down there. All right, so I've gone through the ingredients, guys, and the recipe of this cake will be appearing on this presentation at the end. So please make sure that you copy the recipe when it comes up. In the meantime, to start off this sponge mix, the process is very simple, right? First we put all the liquids that needs to go into the machine, right? And then once we add the liquids, we add the dry. Before we add dry ingredients, one thing I would like to bring to your attention is that the cake, high ratio cake flour and the cocoa powder, right, have to be sieved together. So I'm adding the cocoa powder into this high ratio cake flour, right, and also I would be adding the baking powder. All right, so baking powder we are going to use about 1 tablespoon. I would not even 1 tablespoon, about 3/4 of a tablespoon. So I add it here with the other dry ingredients. All right, so I've mixed the baking powder, the cake flour and the cocoa powder together, and I'm going to give it a bit of a sieve so that we can avoid all the lumps. That's done. So it's basically safe. So next thing what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up the machine. First goes the water, the liquids first. All right, and the egg. And during this time I'm going to add the emulsifier too at this point. So there you go, it goes in. All right, and also I'm going to add the glycerin, which is about, again, 1 tablespoon. So all the liquids have gone in. So the next thing what I'm going to do, I'm just going to close the machine and give it a few seconds of a spin so that all the ingredients bind together. It's not a mixing time or anything, just on slow speed. Now always remember guys, when you're using this machine, you have to be very safe with this machine. There you go, just a slight mixing of all the liquids on a very slow speed, just for about, say, 50 seconds, less than a minute. Right, and then slowly remove the thing here. I'm going to add my dry. So basically the dry ones will be your sugar, your flour mix, and your milk powder. So all the items have gone in. From now onwards, mixing this on based on a few minutes. So the next step that after I have added the dry ingredients into the liquids, I'm going to start the machine again, right, and just another 50 seconds I believe in a slow speed, right, so that the dry ingredient binds with the liquid, and when it changes when the dry mix gets mixed into the liquids, that's when I'm going to stop the machine again. So you can see now it's changing. All right, so it's basically changed. So I'm going to stop the machine now. From this point onwards, we are going to have a sequence of mixing this. That is 4 minutes, exactly 4 minutes. You need to time it. If you have your phone or something, just set the time. 4 minutes on high speed and then 4 minutes on medium speed. That's going to be your mixing sequence. All right, so here we go. We are going to aerate the sponge now. Now this process is called an aeration. So we're going to aerate the sponge by giving it a high speed of mixing for 4 minutes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you see the sponge, my friends, have come up nice. So 4 minutes has just passed on high speed. You can see it's well aerated now. This is the time we are going to change it into a medium speed. So without stopping the machine, I'm going to change the speed to medium. All right, and I'm going to give another 4 minutes on medium speed. Once that 4 minutes is completed, we have completed mixing or aerating the cake batter. Alright friends, now that we have aerated the sponge, we just stopped the machine. If you see the sponge, your consistency of the sponge should be like that. See, it should not be too liquidy. It should just plop down like a nice strong ice cream. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spread it onto my tins. So for your information, if you're having a 200 ml or an 8-inch tin like that, what we did in the beginning of this demo, we are going to scale 300 grams of batter into that. All right, so here I got my scale here, and I've got ready with that, and I'm going to scale 300 grams into this. There you go. So that's about 300. If you want your cake to be a little more bigger, you can go with another 100 if you like. So I'll just show you that also. You just put another 100 on that, so make it 400. Then your sponge might be bigger. There's one 400 there. Then I'm going to fill up the next one. So there's two 400 tins. It's well balanced here. If there is more filling with you, you might be able to put it in a smaller bowl and make some extra sponge for you if you like. But our main focus is on these two main big ones. Usually for that recipe that I'm using, you will be able to get 2 tins. If you don't want 2 big cakes, if you want one, just make half of that recipe. All right, so there you go. We have panned it onto the pan. Just give it a little bit of a tap like that, so that all the air bubbles which are in the batter will break up. Right, there you go. So because this is emulsified sponge, we can do a bit of a tap. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my oven is already been preheated. So my oven has been preheated to 190 degrees. All right, and your baking time should be around 30 to 35 minutes. Depending on the oven. It is a fan forced oven that I'm using at home. Alright, so it's basically that's the ovens usually people have it at home, but even if you're having something with like a deck oven, you can still use the same temperature and you should have a good product. Alright, so here it goes into the oven. Alright, so I would prefer if you can put it in the middle shelf of the oven so that it cooks evenly, top and bottom. And I'm just closing it. Alright guys, so now it's been 30 minutes I believe, and yes it is. So it is time for us to check the sponge. So before I could take out the sponge outside, what I would usually do is I would use a small knife like this, or probably a bamboo shoot, to check whether the inside has cooked. If you do have a thermometer, you can insert the thermometer on the sponge and see whether it is going more than 100 degrees. If it is more than 100 degrees, the internal temperature, that means your sponge is cooked. Otherwise, if you don't have a thermometer, use a knife like that or a bamboo skewer, just squeeze it in, take it out, and if it comes out clean, the sponge is ready. I'm going to check the oven now, so I'm just opening up the oven. I'll just pull this sponge out, just one sponge, right, and then I just put this in here. I'll send it out, bring it out, see, beautifully, it's clean, it doesn't have any sticky stuff on it. That means your sponge is ready. And at this moment, if you can have a cooling rack, something like this, that will be better. After 2 or 3 minutes, we are going to remove this sponge into this cooling rack, and that's how we cool a sponge, right? So if you have a cooling rack, or if you have something very similar to this, you can use it where there should be space for the air to go, because we don't want the cake to be in the tin where it might start sweating and it might give you a soggy base. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this over. Just keep your palm like this, it won't be that warm after 2 minutes, right? So you can always keep your palm and then slowly turn it. All right, with your towel, just remove this. All right, and then remove this paper. All right, there you go, such a nice, very soft. So the next thing I'm going to do, just topple it over onto the cooling rack. All right, and then slowly remove this sides. All right, and there we go, we got a nice sponge here. So if you just see that, you press it, it should just spring back. Oh, beautiful. So if you look at this area, see that, such a nice soft sponge that we have. A very beautiful chocolate sponge for your Black Forest cake. All right friends, so there we go, a beautiful chocolate sponge that we have done. Very simple mixing methods. You did see all the, it was only basically about 8 minutes of mixing and a 190 temperature baking, around 30 minutes, and we got a lovely chocolate sponge that we are going to use to make our black forest cake. Now my decoration of the black forest cake, slicing it, adding it with cream, all that's coming up on my next YouTube presentation, which you can expect very soon, because today, since it's still warm, I can't do the decoration now, so I'm going to leave it a little while. Until then, take care guys, stay safe, and meet you on the next presentation. Bye for now.